Loki should never have worked. On paper, he's a god in giant golden horns, walking across rainbow bridges and talking about conquering Earth. Play that character too seriously and he becomes ridiculous. Play him too realistically and he disappears underneath all the CGI. So Tom Hiddleston had to solve a very unusual acting problem. How do you make someone feel like an immortal god, while convincing the audience he's really just a younger brother desperate for approval? Instead of looking to comic books, Hiddleston borrowed ideas from 4 completely different places. Combined, these 4 choices turned what could have been another forgettable superhero villain into one of Marvel's most memorable characters. The first place he looked was one of Shakespeare's most bitter family rivalries.
Ken and I kind of used Shakespearean villains as a touchstone. We talked about the brothers in King Lear, Edmund and Edgar, Edgar being the favoured son of Gloucester, and Edmund being the bastard son, who is driven by some sort of terrible lack of self-esteem to take his father and his brother down.
That idea became Loki's emotional starting point. Edmund spends his life feeling like the outsider in his own family. That resentment eventually turns him against both his father and his brother. Hiddleston realized that same insecurity could explain almost everything Loki does. Every single betrayal and desperate grab for the throne came from the same source, a younger brother who believed he'd never measure up. Once they understood his motivation, they had to figure out how to bring it to life on screen. Instead of playing the character one way, Hiddleston filmed different takes inspired by completely different actors.
So we did a Peter O'Toole take, a tribute to his sincerity and vulnerability in films like The Lion in Winter. And then a Jack Nicholson take, where I was having the most fun in the room. And then a Clint Eastwood take, where whatever I was feeling would be hidden deep within me and you wouldn't be able to see it.
They weren't trying to find the right performance. They were giving the editor 3 different flavors of Loki to mix together. Each one gave Loki something different. Peter O'Toole gave him vulnerability. Even when Loki was threatening someone, you could still feel the hurt underneath. Jack Nicholson gave him unpredictability. Like his Joker, Loki always looked like he was enjoying himself a little too much. You never knew whether Loki was about to joke with you or stab you. And Clint Eastwood brought restraint. Instead of exploding with emotion, he'd bury it beneath the surface. The quieter Loki became, the more dangerous he felt. None of those performances would have worked on their own, but together, they gave Loki something most Marvel villains never had: the ability to feel sympathetic, entertaining, and threatening at the same time. That approach ended up solving another problem. Most Marvel villains disappear after one movie. Loki kept evolving for more than a decade without ever feeling like a completely different person. In a 2023 interview looking back on the series finale, Hiddleston explained how one of Loki's most famous lines changed with him.
And then in Avengers, he comes down to Earth and he says to Nick Fury,
I am Loki of Asgard.
and I am burdened with glorious purpose. And that purpose is arrogant and hubristic and entitled. And across 6 films, you realize that there was no glory. It was inglorious. It all came to nothing. It was a fallacy. It had no meaning.
Hiddleston no longer saw that line the same way. In The Avengers, he played glorious purpose as someone desperate to prove he deserved more. By the end of Loki Season 2, he played those same words as someone willing to give everything up. Instead of reaching for a throne, Loki accepts an eternity alone, holding the timelines together so everyone else gets to live theirs. Marvel gave Tom Hiddleston a god. He made sure audiences saw the brother underneath. And that's probably why, more than a decade later, people still talk about Loki like he was a real person, not just another superhero villain.